The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive with Dr. Rebecca Risk. Do you ever feel that even though nothing seems seriously wrong and you pass all the medical tests, that you still feel that your health, pain, and fatigue are completely out of control? It doesn't have to be that way. Listen to the tips and suggestions given on our program today and take back control of your health. Now, here is Dr. Rebecca Risk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. I'm your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. We all know logically that sugar causes health problems. The media talks about the obesity epidemic a lot, and we have rising problems with diabetes and cardiovascular illnesses. And one of the culprits labeled with this is sugar. But a lot of people don't seem to know what that actually means. I mean, sugar is everywhere, so how bad is it for us? We're talking today with Nancy Appleton, who has dedicated the last 40 years to educating people on the dangers of sugars with one of her books, Suicide by Sugar, among many others. So welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So how did you get involved in writing about sugar addiction?
Oh, well, I guess you're always a sugar addict once you are one, and it still is day to day for me. I was a sugar addict. I was a tennis player. Tournament player, and so I could eat lots of calories because I exercised so much. And, you know, I'd win a tournament and eat a hot fudge sundae and lose a tournament and eat a whole bag of Oreo cookies. So winner or loser, I was a loser all the way around. And I started getting symptoms when I was, 16, 17, even when I was playing tennis. And they lasted till I was 40, and I knew that sugar was doing something, but as an addict, it's very difficult to quit. So finally at 40, I read a book, and it changed my life. And my symptoms went away, such as boils and canker sores, arthritis in my hands and my knees. I had to learn to pick up a tennis ball, sort of bend down and pick it up. I couldn't hit it with my racket like good players do because I couldn't bend down that far because of my knees. I was a mess, but, you know, when you're addicted, that comes first. And it was always the sugar that meant the most to me. It was actually chocolate, I guess. So that's a brief idea of why after reading this book, I changed my way and then started doing research at UCLA. I lived in Los Angeles and did the research at UCLA where I'd gone to school and found very little. Now, again, this is 40 years ago. So I had to start searching it out myself, and I did. And I wrote a book called Lick the Sugar Habit. And then the sweet Suicide by Sugar that we're using now is an update, but the information is still the same, but there's a lot more we know. So that's why I wrote Suicide by Sugar.
Well, I think at the time you were looking at this, people probably weren't even talking about sugar being an issue the way they are now. I mean, was that hard for you to find that information and to search that out? Well,
first of all, I still gave lectures, and I would have nurses and doctors just walk out on me completely and say, it's fat. Fat's the problem. Well, fat is not the problem. Some forms of fat are, but fat itself, you know, is not it. It's sugar. All the different varieties of sugar are the problems. Yes, I went to lectures. I talked to people. And again, Lick the Sugar Habit was written 40 years ago, or 38 anyway, and it's still on the market. But Suicide by Sugar is really the one to read now.
So when we're talking about sugar, what exactly do we mean?
Well, that's a good question. I have, and I'm sure I don't have them all, just basic sugar. Let me tell you some of them. Barley malt, beet sugar, brown sugar, cane sugar, cane syrup, confectioner's sugar, crystalline fructose, date sugar, evaporated sugar cane, all these fructose, fresh fruit concentrate, or just fruit concentrate, whether it be fresh or not, glucose, granulated sugar, high fructose corn syrup, honey, invert sugar, all of these, maple syrup, rice syrup, molasses, powdered sugar, raw sugar, sugar cane syrup. It goes on. Table sugar, of course, and and white sugar. I don't think I said that either. Unrefined sugar. They'll do anything they can to sell their product. Unrefined sugar, who cares whether it's refined or unrefined? It still upsets the body chemistry. And that's how I got into this I'm sure that there are more words for sugar today that they're trying to cover up what sugar does to the body. Okay.
So one thing I think with that list that you read off, I think if most people, look in their pantry and pick up some sort of packaged food, they're going to find one of those things in it. So it's almost seems like it's impossible to get away from this.
Well, not really. You see, if you eat whole foods, you eat vegetables, you eat fruits, you eat meat, you eat forms of protein, you eat fish, you eat chicken, you eat fowl, other forms of fowl. Those are whole foods. So the less you have in cans, in plastic containers, aluminum, all the rest of it, the harder your body has a time digesting those foods. It's whole foods that came from our ancestors, not like, let's take wheat. Wheat itself is fine. There's nothing wrong with wheat. But we have so ruined wheat with what we've made of it that we have become allergic to it because we eat so much with sugar. And any food you eat with sugar, you can become allergic to, which I'll get into later.
Okay. So what has changed? Why is there so much sugar all of a sudden? Because I know, 100 years ago, we didn't consume this much. I don't think we even had access to this much. So what's happened?
Well, money talks, and they found out that we love sugar and that whatever they were making at the time wasn't enough. So, of course, they just made more sugarcane factories in Florida and in the Caribbean, so that and sugar plantations where the people that worked there were not treated very well. Even up to today, they're not treated very well. I hate to say it. So that's really it's price and demand. Not only price and demand, but make it and demand. How much people want, and they are willing to go ahead with that. The sad thing is that the sugar still subsidizes the government still subsidizes the sugar industry. It's horrible. And people who get food stamps, they can, buy 20 boxes of sugar and nothing else. And that's okay, too. And I think both of those should be changed. The government should not subsidize sugar. And number two, people who are on food stamps shouldn't be able to have cakes, cookies, pies, and pounds of sugar.
Well, so why, when we're talking about this and you said you were really addicted, why is it so hard to quit sugar?
Oh, God. Well, like any other alcohol, I was on a radio program years ago, and this man yells at me, help me, help me. I've given up coffee, I've given up cigarettes, I've given up alcohol, but I can't give up sugar. I weigh 280 pounds. My wife has divorced me. I'm about to lose my job. help me, help me. I mean, it's just as addictive as any of those other substances I just talked about. And so why is it hard to give up? For that reason. And many, it's easy to do, as Mark Twain said when he talked about cigarettes. I've done it many times. Well, you should only be doing it once, of course. But I found it very difficult to do, I have to tell you. When they're presented to you, like you go on a cruise, and you paid for everything, and by gosh, you paid for it, and you're going to eat it. And those night 11 p.m., they have these buffets that are nothing but desserts. Oh, my gosh. It's such a temptation. But don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't go to places like that. Don't go to buffets when you're trying to quit sugar. But, again, we'll talk about this because maybe this is a good time to talk about it.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people that are listening can, relate to this because I think we're all addicted to sugar since we can't really get away from it. It's been in what we're eating, and unless you make that conscious choice, it's going to be there. So what does somebody do to go about, getting over this addiction and to quit?
Okay, I don't believe that anybody should quit cold turkey. That's crazy because you just crave the stuff and you'll break your newfound law and start eating sugar again. So I suggest that you cut everything in half the first time. Like if you put 2 teaspoons of sugar in your tea, coffee, or whatever, put 1 teaspoon. If you drink a soft drink every day, drink a half a soft drink and pour the rest of it out so that you're in control of the product, the sugar. Anything that you do, cut in half for 4 or 5 days, and then cut that in half again for 4 or 5 days, because sugar withdrawal is tough on so many people. So that's how I recommend that you do this till you finally get down to a very small amount, and then that's the end of it. But the symptoms of sugar withdrawal, in case you decide to go to cold turkey, the first one is headaches, just terrible headaches. Another one is hunger. Most people feel continuously hungry. Low energy, feeling tired, mood swings, feeling cranky, muscle aches and pains, nausea, vomiting, stomach cramps, diarrhea, high blood pressure, fast heartbeat, chills, or sweating. Any one of those, or for many, more than one, but the headaches is the worst thing that people talk about. So those are the problems that you will have if you go cold turkey on this, or could have, I should say. Some people are lucky enough not to have any, but very few over my 40 years of doing this. Very few have none.
This, it sounds like when you're quitting anything else, like you mentioned before, cigarettes and alcohol, and sugar seems to be in that very severe addiction category where it's difficult to cut out, as well as can ruin your life.
Yes, it can. And you know that there are many people who are trying to help you to quit this. And there are Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Overeaters Anonymous, as well as there are a couple of radio shows that, email websites that you can go to. I've forgotten their names right now, but as we go on, I'll find them and I'll give them to you. They really do help. I actually went to a couple of meetings. There are different meetings around the United States for sugarholics. Mine was in Los Angeles, and I was just amazed at what I heard from these people. They were all, trying to quit sugar. And one person, when it was her turn to talk, said, "Sugar is my best friend." And I thought that was so sad because, she had rejected other things so that she could have her sugar. And sugar is my best friend. I hope not. I hope it's your worst enemy. Okay.
That's so true. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking today with Nancy Appleton, who is the author of Suicide by Sugar, and she's been advocating for people to quit sugar for the last 40 years. So we're going to be back shortly, and so tune in.
Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAmericaTRN. Get the lowdown on guests, new shows, and your favorites. That's VoiceAmericaTRN. Step by step, you made it through the journey of pregnancy. Now your baby is in your arms, and you're on the cusp of a new journey, breastfeeding. As a new parent, you receive a lot of advice, much of it conflicting, some of it outdated. Tune into Born to be Breastfed with host Marie Biancuso to bust through the myths about feeding your baby. Marie and her guests will help you figure out what you can expect and put you on the best and surest path on your breastfeeding journey. Listen every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel.
Much of the time, the illnesses that people feel are simply symptoms, and they mask the root cause of what the real health problem is. You can take back control of your own health, starting with Billionaire Healthcare. This program is hosted by Ashley Black. Our program will introduce you to fascia, which is the knowledge of the living matrix. This bit of knowledge can bring you the health secrets that only the rich and famous have known. Until now. Listen Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Health and Wellness.
Your favorite Voice America Talk Radio Network shows and hosts are in your car, outdoors, and wherever you need them to be. Listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Falling Through the Cracks. Today we're talking about sugar, which we all know logically can cause health problems, but it is hard to quit because we are, most of us, addicted to it. We're talking today with Nancy Appleton, who is the author of Suicide by Sugar, as well as many other books. She's been advocating for 40 years to educate people on the dangers of sugar. So, Nancy, just before the break, you were talking about a website where people can go to help them quit with sugar. Do you have that information?
Yes, I do. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And you can go there and find out if there are, in your neighborhood, if there are local meetings, and you can learn a great deal. And actually, they have a forum, I think, now and then where you can join and be part of the For Sugarholics. It's exactly what it's for. I recommend it highly.
Okay. So when we're talking about why, like, before the break we talked about, you're addicted and you need, quitting can do this. But why is it so important to quit? What is happening in our bodies when we're consuming sugar?
That's the most important thing you could have said. And here, let me tell you, from the time that you put the sugar in your mouth till the time it suppresses the immune system, which is not very long, here's what happens. You eat the sugar, and it can be in any form. It can be just in iced tea, or it can be in a biscuit or a cake or a Coke. All those things, it doesn't matter where the sugar comes from. Might take a little longer to suppress the immune system because of fiber that's in it, but it still all does the same thing. What happens is, first of all, we change the mineral relationships Minerals only work in relationship to each other. They can't work alone. Iron can't work alone. Calcium can't work alone. It needs the phosphorus. Magnesium and calcium work together. Okay, so you deplete some of your minerals, making all those relationships incorrect now. And once you do that, you can't use your enzymes. Enzymes, of course, digestive enzymes, help you digest your food. Now, so what happens is these enzymes cannot function without a mineral, and you depleted your minerals. So the enzymes can't work as well, and all the food does not digest. Now, if some of the food didn't, if all of the food didn't digest, you die. But some of the food does, but much of it does not digest. And what happens is it sits in the gut and starts to putrefy. It's supposed to get into the intestines and go through the whole process in the body, but it can't. It sits in the gut, where your stomach. And what happens there is it putrefies, and some of the lining of your gastrointestinals start to get irritated. They don't like this stuff that's there. And the cells widen, and partially digested food can get into the bloodstream where it does not belong. And in the bloodstream, it swims around and can go to the joints and cause arthritis. Now you're hearing where diseases come from. They don't just drop out of the blue. So it could cause arthritis. It could cause headaches. It can go to the brain. The blood-brain barrier, they know, does not work for sugar. It can go to the brain and cause headaches. It swims around in the body, just causing havoc in the body. Finally, your immune system, the Pac-Men of the body, the good guys, try to come to your defense and get this food out of the body. It doesn't belong in the bloodstream. But your immune system is supposed to work against cancer, all sorts of infections, bacterial, viral, fungal. That's what your immune system is supposed to be doing, not getting out partially digested food. So your immune system becomes exhausted. It says, I can't do this anymore. And that's when those particles start causing diseases. And your immune system works as hard as it can, but it can't do it. Therefore, you can get infectious diseases because your immune system is not taking out the bacteria as well as it should be, or you can get degenerative diseases where this partially digested food goes to various places in the body and causes havoc. So that's what happens from the time you eat it till the time it suppresses your immune system and causes problems.
Well, I think that's pretty significant just when we look at the immune system aspect and not all the other things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, that's our first line of defense for any illness, no matter what it is. And if we're consuming sugar every day, and I think we're all consuming a lot of sugar, that's not working properly. And then we're exposed to, you know, we've got some superbugs going around and some new things, and you know, it seems like it's pretty significant for us to avoid all this sugar that we've got going on.
Absolutely. Of course, I go into this in a little more detail in my book. And by the way, everything I'm saying now is documented from medical journal articles. My book looks like the index is unbelievable of the amount of books that, or actually articles, is most of them, from what we call PubMed. You can go to PubMed on the internet and find all the medical journal articles that way.
Well, so you know, I think that's important to know too, because I know when when someone first told me I had to stop eating sugar when I was 21, and it was well before I got into, being a doctor of Chinese medicine and doing what I do now, I went through the withdrawal symptoms as well, everything that you're describing. And one thing that I found fairly disturbing was the lack of acceptance for quitting. I mean, it's more acceptable, I think, to quit alcohol or to quit other things. But when you're quitting sugar, people think, why can't you just have this dessert or this one thing? And there's a bit of a social aspect around it to fit in. You should eat sugar so that we all feel comfortable doing what we're doing.
It's difficult. You're absolutely right. I feel that I'm in a better position because everybody knows I'm a nutritionist and have written books, so that it's sort of socially acceptable for me not to eat sugar. But you, who isn't a sugar crazy lady like I am, you have a hard time. Well, why don't you eat it? It's just there's a small amount there, and I made it, for dinner tonight. And, it's difficult. I understand that. But your health is more important than anything right now. Now, people who are healthy, you're doing okay, apparently, with your sugar. But, again, if you have symptoms, and when I say healthy, there aren't too many of those people around, because symptoms, could be taking drugs for pre-diabetics, taking drugs for arthritis, taking drugs for heart disease. I mean, the list goes on. Only if you don't take any pills and you wake up happy and go to bed happy, do I feel that you're healthy. All the rest of us fit into a different category. And these people have a hard time digesting sugar because their immune system is trying to work on other things. And it wasn't meant to do this. That's not what God, he or she, did at the time. It's not, we don't evolutionary have the digestive enzymes to digest sugar. That's part of the problem.
Okay. So in North America, we're looking at a rise in diabetes and obesity. And there's a lot of theories, actually, to why that's happening. And we have these fad diets go around. How does sugar relate to this?
Oh, gosh, does it? I'll tell you. Again, 40 years ago when I talked about this, what do you mean? You've got, naturally, you do have sugar in your body. Yes, you do. And your brain needs 2 teaspoons of sugar all the time to function well. Now, it can get it from in fact, it can get it from meat and protein if your carbohydrates run out and you've eaten more protein or fat. It can actually pull the sugar. You don't need to eat one bit of sugar, no fruit even, and your body will make its own amount of sugar for the brain. So, but anybody, again, who has any of these symptoms, they should be eating none. Zero. The rest of you who, again, as I say, wake up happy and go to bed happy and take no pills and exercise and smile at the world, you probably can use a small amount of sugar. I would say, 2 teaspoons a day. A Coke has 8 teaspoons, in case you didn't know. That's a lot of sugar in one bottle there.
That is a lot of sugar. I mean, what were the how much sugar were we consuming about 100 years ago? I think it was a small amount even in a year.
Yes, they had made the sugar mills by then. They were able to put the sugar cane into something and it would, break it up and pull out sugar 100 years ago. 150 years ago, I don't think so. It's somewhere in there where we invented the sugarcane industry became a big part of our society. So let's go back to 100 years ago, about 1915, we'll say. We were eating it's just about that time that the race went up. The sugar went up in our diet. The race went on, too. And at that time, we were probably eating 10 teaspoons of sugar a day. And that is in fruit as well as other sugars. Fruit does have sugar in it, but it has all that fiber in it. It has all the vitamins, minerals. None of those are, of course, in sugar. And again, all those other names that I told you about. So it was about 100 years ago that things started increasing. And by 1990, I think that it was about then, 95 maybe, we were eating the most sugar we ever have, about 150 pounds of sugar per person per year. We're down now to about 120, 30, depends on who's counting. And that's still, 20 or 30 pounds of sugar a year is all we need. So there you are. What I recommend you do is to take all the sugar out of your house right now, all the brown sugar, all the maple syrup, all that stuff, and don't throw it out. Don't give it to anybody. It'll just hurt them. So that's where I'd start if you're trying to get over this bad problem.
Well, I think that's good advice, because a lot of people, from my experience, because I coach, thousands of people I've coached to go off sugar, and some people will say, well, I have to finish what's in my house first, and then I'll switch over.
Yeah.
And, I think when you're looking at an addiction, it might be important to address it right then and there and not finish what you have, especially with, when we're looking at how severely it can hurt you.
Right. You're right, absolutely right. And people still don't understand this. There's still a lot of people who still feel that fat is the problem. And it's mind-boggling to me. In fact, I used to speak at different groups that had given up sugar. And even trying to say to them, they would believe that it was sugar and fat. And I would just shut up and not say one word about fat. And if they even asked me a question, I'd say, I've come to speak here about sugar, not fat. Talk to the leader of your group. She will either know or know somebody. But, boy, I wouldn't touch that subject, because people would literally pull their shade right in between us. And what are you talking about? Fat's been the problem for so long. Well, it's not the problem.
Well, I did a show on June 27th with Udo Erasmus, and we talked about fats then. So if anybody wants to know how important that is for their diet, they can listen to that show. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Nancy Appleton today. She is the author of Suicide by Sugar, among many other books, and has been advocating for the last 40 years, educating people on the dangers of sugar and how that can affect their health. So we're going to be back shortly. So tune in.
Now you don't have to stay linked to your desktop or laptop. Take Voice America on the go and listen anywhere. Get our mobile app for iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android at the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
Can grief be good for you? Absolutely. It gets your attention, helping you evaluate your choices and relationships. Your losses define who you are. Tune in each week for Good Grief with host Cheryl Jones. Our show features those who have made incredible transformations by grieving their losses. You'll learn how to find your courage and strength. You'll discover the important things in your life and how to let go of things that are less important. Good Grief airs live Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern on Voice America Health and Wellness.
Tune in every Tuesday for C. diff, spores, and more with hosts Nancy Kerala and Dr. Chandrabali Ghosh. Our program is to provide information about C. diff, healthcare-associated infections, and more. Nancy is a C. diff survivor, healthcare professional, and the founder and executive director of the C. diff Foundation. And Dr. Ghosh is the chairperson of research and development for the C. diff Foundation. Together, with their guests, we'll explore infection prevention, treatments, environmental safety, and more. Listen every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Health and Wellness.
We're making it easier to listen to the Voice America Talk Radio Network live wherever you go on iPhone, BlackBerry, or Android. Download it from the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Falling Through the Cracks. I'm your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk, and today we're talking about how sugar can affect you. We're speaking with Nancy Appleton, who is the author of Suicide by Sugar, among many other books. She's been educating people for 40 years on the dangers of sugar. So Nancy, one thing I want to bring to people's attention, I actually found it a little bit shocking when you say we're consuming 150 pounds of sugar a year when we talk about how dangerous the sugar is for us. And, as adults, we can make those choices. But what's happening when children are consuming this much sugar?
Yeah, this is a big problem because many schools are trying to cut out sugar. Not all of them, for sure, yet. And, they have these, now they're having exercise programs all over the United States, and kids run in races and relays and do all sorts of things that I certainly wasn't doing at school when I went. But anyway, afterward, they treat them to something, and they could treat them to an ice cream bar, a glass of orange juice, which has as much sugar as a Coca-Cola does. Not whole fruit, but if that's not happening at your school, and then, of course, all the birthday parties that they have for these kids, so each one of those. Well, when my daughter had her kids in grammar school, she would go to school and make sure that on the days of her kids' birthdays, she would make sure that they had good, healthy food. She would take fruit and put it, frozen fruit, melons, etc., and put it through one of those blenders and make these sort of smoothies. And that was one of the things she did. And she tried to explain to them to have them, give them a whole, after one of these races at the school running races, she suggested that they have apples or bananas or oranges, whole fruit, and a container of water. And by gosh, they did that. So the school is not, if you get a group of women together who feel the way that you do, or men, of course, and present this to the school, I think you'd be doing your school a favor. But let's just talk about home. Your mom knows that sugar is not good for you, but your dad won't go for this. He wants his sugar. Well, this is a very difficult problem. I think that when kids realize that what sugar is doing to them, or just that the schools are no longer doing birthday cakes on birthdays and things like this, that the parents have to believe in this too. You can't have a kid and say, don't eat that sugar over there. Your father likes it. No, that just does not work. So if the father still has to have his sugar, have it out of the house, but don't have it in the house. Kids are even more, susceptible. You put a Coca-Cola, again, or most soft drinks, all the soft drinks have between 7.5 and 9 teaspoons of sugar. You put a Coke in a kid's body, and it's far more damaging than to your body because you weigh 100 pounds more or whatever. Your body can handle it just a little better, but not much. So the kids really do have a bigger problem than we do, but not if the parents. I just said to my grandkids, not my kids, I'm sorry to say, but luckily my daughter and son-in-law believe in what I said, and there was no sugar in this household. And when birthdays came, or Halloween, that's another thing, and in terms of kids, you don't have to give those kids candy bars and things like that. You can. My daughter used to buy these little bracelets, and once you put them together, they'd light up, and they cost about 40 cents, 50 cents. She'd get 100 of them, and then if she didn't use them all in one Halloween, she'd keep them for the next. The kids loved them. They don't have to have trick or treat. Their treat doesn't have to be sweet. It can be something different.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are relating, sugar to causing a lot of, children being hyperactive and related to the ADHD we're seeing. Is there a correlation between the two?
Yes, and there's research on that too that does show that. I think that a kid, that would be the first thing you do. It's the cheapest, it's the non-invasive, no pills, no nothing. Just take them off of all the sugar and see what happens. You'd be amazed. Thank you for mentioning that. I didn't.
That's okay. I like your explanation of what's happening in schools as well, and I still see that happen. When I'm treating children and they come in and there was some event at school and somebody brought in a cupcake for every child, and that happens, on a weekly basis, right? Or their child's feeling left out because all these other kids are having sugar and they're not allowed. And I wonder how the teachers can handle 30 kids hopped up on sugar. But I think also as an example is an education system should be showing them to eat healthy foods and not always all this sugar, because we know it's not good for us, and they're supposed to be educating the children. So it seems to be something wrong to me with all the sugar and the bad food that there is in schools.
Well, I think that, again, they get it in the school by the teacher, and they're learning something that, my mother never taught me. We ate sugar all the time. And so parents are sort of wrong. And that's a difficult thing between a kid and his parents. My parents are wrong. My parents aren't wrong about anything. And it's difficult on the parents because they have been, using this for, let's say, 10 years, 8 years with these kids. And, of course, they used it before. But it's a hard emotional and psychological thing that has to go on here, too. That, I think it's time to, parents can say, I think it's time to change. We have information now that we never had before. And so we're going to quit the sugar.
Yeah. So when we're talking about quitting sugar, a lot of people are going to they're going to probably go to Splenda or aspartame or something to replace it. So what are safe sugar substitutes that you recommend to people?
Okay, first of all, sugar substitutes. Today there are hundreds. Just write sugar substitutes in Google or somewhere, and you'll find so many, many, many. I can't believe it. So I don't know, of course, most of them. I don't eat any sugar. I do have a small bottle in my cabinet of stevia. Stevia comes from I think it's Brazil or a South American plant. And then now they've learned how to grow it here so that we make some money, not the Brazilians. And it is sweet, and you can get it in a variety of flavors. don't give up if you take one by the small. I think that the liquid is easier to control because you can try 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. The pills are not as easy. And, of course, you can use and you can cook with it. You can use the stevia for cooking. And, again, you can control by 1, 2, 3 drops or more in whatever you're making. So the only one that I really can recommend is stevia. Some of them have, that, believe it or not, have some form of sugar. Next time you're in a restaurant, see if they have the little containers of sugar substitutes. Splenda is not a good one. There are so many out there, but read the ingredients. I think the first ingredient on Splendas is sugar. So there you are. And I think it says glucose or fructose, which are both of the 2 ingredients in table sugar.
Which is, that's what is usually recommended to diabetics. And it's now, was some studies last year linking, aspartame to some of these issues that we're seeing a huge amount of. And I think some people are even saying, Diet Coke is actually more addictive than Coke.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And that's what people are... Yeah, and so, I think it's important to stress that, when you're quitting sugar, don't just replace your Coke with Diet Coke because you may have more issues than when you started, and to actually get off of that.
Yeah, not only have more issues, but you'll crave the stuff. Because it's still sweet. So it doesn't matter whether it's sugar or sugar substitute. If you're a true sugaraholic, you do not need to have any sugar substitute because it doesn't do the trick. It doesn't make you stop the cravings. You've got to get rid of everything for a while. And then, do I have cravings? No, I don't. I'm sure that I still get some sugar in salad dressings. Boy, when I was going through my period of not licking the sugar habit, I would take with me to a restaurant a small jar of, vinegar and olive oil, whatever I put into it, a salad dressing. I mean, I was really neurotic. I wasn't going to have any.
That's good advice, too. Yeah.
So that you can have a salad and have the salad dressing that you like. And don't make salad dressings with sugar in them. And don't start reading your labels all the time. Label for everything before you buy it. That's probably the best thing I could say and see. And some places, some different labels will have 2 or 3 forms of sugar. And it might be down lower. They might say, we'll talk about canned peas. So not canned peas. I can't think of something, but many times a label will, again, have 3. They'll say it has fructose, it has high fructose corn syrup, it has glucose, or things that it could have in it, all in it. And, of course, they put those on the label in relationship. The top one is the most that you would eat. The next one is there's not quite that much as like in a cookie. Wheat would be number 1. The second one might be some form of sugar, but it could also be eggs. It could be. That's about it in terms of, unless it's chocolate chip or something. But anyway, it's many times these products have more sugar. They've just written it this way and put in 3 different kinds of sugar to sweeten the product. And so they put them low on the list. But if you put all 3 of those together, that would be the highest in the product. And, of course, they don't want to say that. That doesn't sound good or look good.
Well, and I think that's one of, in the beginning you said it's important to eat whole foods, because in these prepackaged foods, whether it's canned food or anything else, there's usually going to be sugar in it, which I think, when I counsel people to stop sugar, sometimes they tell me they think, oh, that'll be fine because they don't eat candies. And then they come back and go, wow, I had absolutely no idea that there was this much sugar in my diet, because I thought I wasn't eating candy, and it's hidden in so many things. And so We're not sometimes aware how much we're getting and how addicted we are, because we don't even know we're eating it.
That's true. Next time, again, that you go to a restaurant, and an expensive one, where they have those little containers of jam or jelly, take a look at that. They have to put the ingredients on every one of those little things you get. And when you look at it, it'll say, let's say it's strawberry jam. So strawberries will be number one. And then there aren't too many ingredients, but they might, again, say high fructose corn syrup is number 2. Number 3 is sugar, table sugar, or fructose or glucose. And if you add those all up, there's far more sugar in there than there is strawberries. But that's the way they do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that sells products, because we're so addicted. We'll want more of that one because it's so sweet. And now all the only flavor we seem to like is sweet these days.
I think that what you said is absolutely right. Why do they put the sugar in? Because it's addictive. Look at your cans. Why do canned peas need sugar? They don't. But they will keep you coming back for more, and they will be making more money.
Yeah. So, Nancy, if there is anybody who either wants help with quitting sugar or has any other questions for you, how can they get a hold of you?
Okay, you can go to my website, which is very simple, Nancy Appleton, Appleton, at NancyAppleton.com is how you do it. And through there, you can email me anything. And, on the site, there are 100, and I think it's about 42 now. I don't run my website. 142 reasons why sugar is ruining your health. And these are all, I have all the documents, medical journal articles, documents on 143 different things that can happen to your body. So watch out. You get a lot of information. There's tons of articles people have written in, and you'll find out a lot more about sugar, too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important, and I think most people listening are probably seeing some shadows of themselves in what we've talked about, because unless they've already approached sugar, I find it's usually an issue for people. So thank you so much for joining me today. I think this was a really informative show, and hopefully is going to help a lot of people.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. So today we were talking with Nancy Appleton. She is the author of Suicide by Sugar, among other books. Her books are all available on Amazon. So if you are needing some help, then you can get her book and go on her website and get some guidelines on how sugar is affecting you and what you can do to lick the sugar habit, as the title of one of Nancy's books is. I want to thank you so much for listening, and please make today a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive. Please join Dr. Rebecca Risk again next Monday at noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We'll talk more next week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the